Welcome back, everyone. No matter where you are, no matter what time it may be. I hope y'all are doing well out there. Now, this upload's gonna hit close to home for a lot of folks out there, especially this time of year. These are the kinds of encounters that happen to hunters. The people who know the woods better than most others. The ones who spend the most time out there. Who can tell a coyote from something else. Just by the way the brush moves alone. They know that it's not a normal animal if it's something that isn't supposed to be there. Some of these are old, going back decades. Others happened not that long ago. Every one of them came from somebody who swore they saw something that wasn't normal. Deer season's in full swing, and for a lot of hunters, that means quiet mornings in the woods. For a few, though, it turned into something else entirely. These are their encounters. I want to thank you for listening and cut these intros short. Legends, lock in, and let's begin. Everyone grab a drink. Lock your doors and windows. Hit the lights. And let's get started. Hey, Reels. You seem to be one of the few that take these serious, so I'll tell you what happened to me. This was 1987 up in Iron County, Michigan. I was 23 back then, and I hunt the same patch of woods that my dad did. It's extremely thick, a lot of spruce and poplar, and very quiet in the winter months. I was set up about 2 ridges south of our old deer camp. Snow was maybe 6 inches deep, still coming down light that day. I had a bolt-action 30-06 with me. I hadn't seen much all morning. About 3 p.m. I hear what I thought was a big buck coming in from the east. Slow steps, crunching snow. I shouldered the gun and waited, but it stopped behind the cedars and just stood there. I didn't hear no snorts, no sound. I thought for a minute I'd been busted, but again, there was no sounds of anything retreating or snorting or being spooked. I finally just gave out a soft whistle. Whatever it was answers with this noise that I'll describe the best I can. It was kind of like air being forced through something's throat that just wasn't made properly. It was deep, wet, a very ugly, unnerving sound. Then I started to smell this weird odor. You ever gut a deer and nick the stomach? That hot copper stink. Imagine that, but much stronger, mixed with wet dog and something rotten. That's what hit me right before it showed itself. Thing stepped out slow. Black fur, long arms. Its legs were bent like a damn grasshopper, but they were huge, very thick, covered in muscle. It had shoulders like a man, though, and its hands were too big. I saw its claws curling back towards its wrist. The thing had bright red eyes. They weren't glowing like something out of a movie, just a dull red, like tail lights through a thin layer of fog. It definitely knew right where I was because it was standing there just staring at me. The muzzle was long, and it looked like it was dripping with saliva. There was snow sticking to it. I don't even remember raising my gun. I just remember the kick. It screamed. That's the only word. It sounded like metal being tore. It dropped to all fours, then took off. I hit it again when it was maybe 20 yards away. It rolled or slid in the snow. It got up limping and still came my direction. I backed up until I tripped over a stump and fell backward. I fired again from the ground. I saw blood splatter into the snow. It was dark like oil. It stopped just long enough for me to crawl behind a fallen log. I took this time to rack another shell. When I looked up again, it was gone. There was blood, a lot of it, actually, and drag marks like it had gone downhill toward the creek. I got out of there before dark. The next morning I went back with my uncle. The snow had filled most of it in, but you could see where something heavy had torn a path through the brush. We never found a body or any more blood, so I have to assume that this thing did survive my assault. Or defense, maybe is a better word. Some people don't take the shot, and it works out. But in my situation, it was already headed in my direction, so if I hadn't took the shot, I personally don't think I would be here telling this. I don't think it died. It probably just learned to stay out of sight. And others mention how they pull up guns and these things seem to know what they are. Well, I imagine they do because they've probably been shot at before. I think it's a learned behavior. I'm not saying they're not intelligent because they obviously are, but that doesn't mean they can't get smarter and learn what things are, especially things that hurt them. My uncle told me not to tell anyone. He said people would think I'd been drinking or lost my mind. I quit hunting alone after that day. I'm very grateful to have a platform where I can tell this without fear of ridicule and laughter. Thank you, Reels. Anonymous. This next email is a person that I've actually talked to a few times, but they only mentioned before that they had heard strange sounds. I guess they finally decided to share what was actual truth this time. Reels. I've written you before, as you know, about strange noises out here, but I never said what I really saw. Figured I'd finally go ahead and let this all out. This was somewhere around 95 or 96. I was 28, living out near Hemp Hill in East Texas. Me and my cousin used to hunt hogs in the national forest down here. It's thick and hard to see very far. The ground seems to always be wet. We'd camp for a night or two, run a few feeders, and check sign. This time we'd stayed later than we usually did, close to dark. I still remember the color of the sky that evening. There's small things that I'll never forget. We had us a small fire going. We hadn't turned on any lights yet. You could hear frogs down by the creek. Crickets, owls, everything was normal. Out of nowhere, the frogs stopped. Everything else followed. It wasn't exactly dead silent. It was definitely off, though. It was like half the woods just stopped living. My cousin was cleaning a knife and said he thought he heard something walking. I told him it was just a hog moving slow through the woods. We both listened, and yeah, something big was moving, but it wasn't a hog, that was clear. The steps were spaced too far apart, and you could almost feel the weight hit the ground. He had a .243, and I grabbed a light. I looked around behind the camp. Eyeshine hit about 50 yards out. They were extremely high up, way too high for an animal that I'm aware of. They were a dull yellow, amber color. It was standing between two trees. I could see the outline. At first I thought it was a bear, but the shoulders were too wide, too forward, too square. Its chest looked barrel-like. Its fur was thick around the neck, and it reminded me of a mane on a lion. It didn't move in our direction, it just started moving to the side, and stopped and started shifting its weight from one foot to the other, kind of swaying a little. I think it was trying to see what we were. I could hear it breathing as well. I kept the flashlight on it, and it didn't seem to mind at all. Most animals will look away or run when a light hits them, but this one just blinked and tilted its head. It didn't seem to care at all. No fear whatsoever. After, I would guess, maybe 30 seconds, it took a few slow steps sideways and disappeared behind some more trees. It never made a sound. At the time, my cousin swore to me that he could see it watching us from the other side, but I personally couldn't find it again after that. Now it would take a legit crazy person to sleep after that, and most people would leave. We weren't most people, and we didn't sleep that night. Every now and then we'd hear something big pacing out there, circling a wide pattern. I got up around 3 in the morning to use the restroom, and I saw those eyes again. They were closer to us this time. They were also low to the ground, like it was crouched or on all fours. No sound again. We stared at each other for a few seconds, and it faded off again. Nothing else happened that night. We came back out a few weeks later with a friend who worked for the county. He said he'd heard talk about walking wolves before, and they had been seen down by the old mill road, but he'd just laughed all of this stuff off. I'm not here to say what we saw was one of those, but I do know it wasn't a hog, and it for sure was not a bear. So what was it? It didn't act like it wanted to hurt us at any point. It just stood there and let us see it. Now, my cousin completely stopped hunting after that night. Me, I still go, very often actually, as much as I can. I keep a bigger rifle now. Every time I see an animal's eyes out there, I wonder if it's that same one, or if it's just something that's supposed to be there. I always feel like I'm being watched when I'm in the woods, but I refuse to let this control my life. Thanks, Reels. T. Now, my story isn't really a scary story like most that you read, but I still don't know what to call it. This happened in 2003 out by the Beartooth foothills, southwest of Billings, Montana. I was 32, and I hunt elk every fall on that same stretch of timber off a ranch that my buddy leases. Now, this is big country out there. Open basins. The pines are as thick as a wall, and you can walk half a day and not see another soul in any direction. That morning, I was getting desperate, so I'd taken a shot on a bull that was a little too far out. I hit him back. I knew it the second that I squeezed the trigger. He took off into the woods downhill. I gave it about an hour, like you're supposed to, then started following the blood. The snow was patchy, enough to track it pretty easily. It went maybe 300 yards, and the trail started to thin out. I found a few drops on some leaves, then nothing. I kept working grid patterns trying to pick it back up, but after an hour I was just wandering in circles. The wind picked up, the sun dropped down, and the light was starting to fade, and it was the hour right before it gets completely dark. I sat down on a stump to figure out what to do, and like any hunter that finds themselves in this situation, I was starting to get that lost feeling. The woods were quiet, but not something unnatural. You could hear little stuff moving. I remember hearing one crow calling way off. Sounded like it was miles away, but at least it was a sound. I started hearing something behind me. It sounded like steps in the snow, and it was not something moving fast. It was trying to stay hidden. Now, at that point in time, I was privy to Bigfoot, Sasquatch sightings. There were more stories than you could listen to in a year. But this Dogman thing, I knew nothing about. I'd never heard of such a thing ever in my life. So you can imagine my shock when I turned and saw it standing less than 100 feet away from me. It had shoulders broad, but its body was lean, sort of a torso V shape. It was about 7 feet tall. It was covered in gray fur that reminded me of a coyote. Now this one wasn't hunched, it was extremely straight and tall, the body of a human. But its head was definitely, without a doubt, shaped like a dog's. The eyes threw me off. They were a pale blue, almost gray, but clear like they were reflecting daylight even though it was near dark. It didn't raise any hackles, it never growled, it just stood there. I had my rifle on my knees, but I didn't dare lift it. For some reason, I didn't feel scared, not like you'd expect. I just felt like it wanted me to notice it. Then it moved, just walked off to my left, maybe 20 yards or so. Then it stopped and looked back. I don't know why, but I stood up and started walking that direction as well. Every few steps I'd stop, and it would stop and glance back at me, but it just kept moving away. We went probably 100 yards like that until we came to a thicket of spruce. Right there in the middle of it was my elk. Dropped. Dead. Maybe 2 hours. Perfect heart shot, even though I thought I'd gut hit him. I looked back toward where the thing had been, and it was gone. I didn't hear it leave. I didn't smell anything off. There was nothing. I packed the quarters out one trip at a time. I got back to the truck just before dark. I sat there a long time trying to make sense of all of this. I didn't tell my buddy. He would have definitely laughed at me. There is not a doubt in my mind. He still doesn't know until this day. This is only the second time I've ever told this to anyone. Unpopular to common belief, it seems to me. I don't think that it meant to harm me in any way. I know that sounds crazy to most. I've hunted my whole life. I know what fear feels like, and that wasn't it. Whatever they are, well, this one anyway, I think it just wanted me to find what I'd come for. I feel like it led me to my elk. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe there's more than one kind of these things out there. Maybe some are mean, some are not. I don't pretend to know, but I've thought about those eyes for 20 years now, and I still can't get rid of the feeling that it was trying to help me. It could have hurt me. It could have done a lot of things, but it chose to lead me to my elk and then walk away. There's only one way to interpret that. Anonymous. It was 2014 in Clarion County, Pennsylvania. Rifle season for whitetail had just opened. I hunted state game land, and I had since high school. It was maybe a mile from where my cousin lives. Thick oak ridge, bunch of clear cuts, and an old logging road that runs straight through it. It was cold that morning, 20-something degrees, frost on everything. I was out before light, sitting over a little hollow where deer usually bed. Around 9, I saw a nice 8-point come trotting down through the trees. He was probably 70 yards out. One shot with a .270, and he went down hard, kicked a few times, and stopped moving. I gave it a few minutes, then started walking over. I remember seeing birds scatter off a tree to my right. It startled me a bit, but I didn't think much about it after that. I started field dressing the deer right there. I got halfway done when I heard branches snapping down toward the hollow. Big weight, heavy steps. My first thought was bear. Nothing else could sound like that, not in this area. And they were still out, or maybe it could have been another hunter walking up. My mind was all over the place. I yelled down, asking if someone was there. I got nothing in return. I was hit with a smell shortly after. Wet fur and iron, like blood. I started to hear breathing, not panting, not snorting, just a steady, deep rhythmic breath. I stood up, I had my rifle still on my shoulder, and I caught movement. I saw brown fur, and it appeared to be extremely thick. It looked darker around the shoulders. I thought bear again, until it stepped out where I could see it. The thing was tall, way taller than me. I'm 6'4". It was wide through the chest, its head shaped like a German shepherd's but much bigger. The snout was longer. The eyes were weird. They were amber at first, then they flashed red when it turned a little. I don't know if it was reflection or something else, but they looked alive. It looked down at the deer, then back at me. It peeled its lips back, and I heard a low rumble come out of it. I raised the rifle, and it lunged instantly. Not all the way at me, but enough to make me fire. I hit it, center, straight in the chest. It stumbled, then let out another growl that was way deeper than the first one. It felt like it shook the leaves. I started backing up fast, cycling another round, but it didn't come after me again. Instead, it dropped to all fours, grabbed my deer by the neck like it weighed nothing, and dragged it downhill. I fired at it again, but it was already gone behind the brush, and I know I missed. I waited a long time before leaving. When I went down later with my cousin, the drag trail went maybe 60 yards and just stopped. There was blood on the leaves, and the trail just went dry after a while. We told the game warden we lost a deer to a bear. He said bears don't drag deer uphill and sure as hell don't vanish with them. He acted like he knew something that we didn't. I can't add proof or verify that, but it was definitely a feeling. You would have just had to been there to know what I mean. I think these officials, a lot of them know what's going on. I don't know why they won't tell people, but I think they know. Now, I don't have any lasting trauma that I can speak of, and I will still hunt. Still do, but not there. I don't know what that thing was, but it wasn't scared of gunfire, and it wasn't hungry in the way animals are. It looked like it just wanted to take what I'd killed. That initial charge and my first shot, I suppose it could have been a bluff charge, but I shot before trying to rationally figure out what was happening. When a very large animal, especially when you see something that resembles a werewolf, comes charging at you and you have a gun, if you don't fire, you need help, mentally. But like everything else, that's just my biased opinion. I have had a few nightmares here and there over the years, but other than that, I usually push it out of my mind and try not to think about it. If you have had a weird encounter of this type in the woods anywhere before, if you dwell on this stuff, it will eat you alive. You have to try to get over it and live your life as normal as you can. Do not let these things ruin what you love. Ben. Hey, Reels. My weirdness happened in Northern California in 2021 up near Lassen County. I hunt up there quite a bit, mostly mule deer. It's very rough terrain, there's lava rock and heavy pine, that's about it. I go by myself most of the time. It's more quiet that way. I only have to worry about my steps instead of someone else's. The second week of the rifle season, I was camped off of a service road maybe 10 miles from the main highway. There'd been a storm the day before, snow patches still in the shade. I was hiking ridge lines, glassing for movement. About noon, I saw what looked like a big buck cutting across a meadow and heading into the timber. I dropped downwind, figured I could intercept. I got maybe 200 yards into the trees and stopped. I couldn't hear him anymore. Just a light wind and the creak of trees. I waited for a bit longer, then started seeing movement out ahead. White, not tan. I thought it was a cow from one of the open range herds. It was white. But then I watched it stand up straight, upright. Now, obviously, being the color, I had no idea what I was looking at, but I knew it was lean, muscular. Its fur was white with gray around the shoulders. It had to be maybe 8 feet tall if I had to give a guess. It was watching me before I saw it. Its head was tilted. I couldn't move. The rifle felt like it weighed 500 pounds. It moved fast, just a few steps, and it was behind another tree. I could hear claws on bark. I don't know what it was doing. Sharpening them, maybe. Who knows? That was kind of a joke and kind of not. It came around the side, still watching me. It wasn't showing or baring teeth. Growling, it wasn't making any sounds, it was just looking at me. I tried to back away slow, but I hit a branch with my boot, and that must have triggered some kind of reaction. It came forward quickly, a few feet. Its legs were stiff, its arms were out a little in front of it. Its shoulders immediately hunched like it was trying to make itself look bigger. I aimed, but I never fired. It stopped, about 30 yards away. I could see its face clearly, and its eyes were just black. For a long time, nothing happened. Just the wind and my heartbeat in the side of my head. It turned and walked off with nothing happening. It didn't run. It took its time. Never looked back at me once. I could have shot it multiple times, but I didn't. Sometimes I think I should have, but that's just my fear taking over. I would never shoot at anything unless I had to or I was trying to fill the freezer. All the way out, I kept my eyes on that line of trees until I hit the road. I packed up my camp that very evening and drove home. I didn't tell Fish and Game. What would I even say? I know people say, why don't you tell someone? Why don't you call someone? But when you call and say a white thing walked up on me and just let me go for no reason, who's going to believe that? I wouldn't believe it myself had I not seen it with my own eyes. These things are definitely real. I don't know where they come from or what purpose they serve, but they are there. Make no mistakes about that. That's all I've got. Anonymous. Friends, legends, family. That's going to wrap this upload up, y'all. I want to thank everyone who sent these in and trusted me enough to read them. You never really know what someone went through out there. And most of these folks kept quiet for years before finally putting it in words. I get it. I did the same thing myself. I appreciate every single one of you for being here, for listening, and for keeping the comment section respectful like a lot of you always do. That's what makes this channel what it is. Everyone needs to feel safe and understood here. I have noticed a few new listeners lately that seem to be, let's just say, trying to be a bad apple. Now, I cannot sit here and tell you with certainty that every single one of these encounters are legit, perfectly true. I can't do that. Other channels, none of them, in fact, no channel can do that. Unless you were there yourself, there's no way to know for sure. I just trust people until they give me a reason not to. I do vet these people a little, but I don't push. I want them to open up and tell me what happened. And then I myself decide whether to upload or not. I use my own discretion. So should all of you. It's okay to listen and to speculate, but asking a question is one thing. Being downright nasty and laughing at someone and calling them names is something else entirely. I will say it again. It will not be tolerated here. I will remove you from the channel immediately. That's not welcome here. So if you're listening and you don't believe these stories or one in particular, you're allowed to ask questions. Freedom of speech. That's what I want. Conversations. But productive conversations. Not attacks. That's not what we want. That doesn't help anyone. That's enough rambling. I'm sure most of you have probably already just left by now. I don't blame you. I just had to bring that out into the open and set some things straight. Most of you probably haven't seen the negativity, but I stay pretty close in the comment sections and remove it pretty quickly. The thing is, if people see negativity in the comments, then they're going to be reluctant to send me their encounters, afraid they're going to be ridiculed as usual. That's understandable. Anyway, if you like tonight's stories, hit the like button. Share it around. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. Now that I'm completely over the stomach bug or whatever I had, the uploads should go back into a normal rhythm. Now that I've completely recovered from this virus or stomach bug, whatever was going on, it was horrible, by the way, you can expect the uploads to start rolling in as usual. I try to do at least one a day. It's a lot of work, but that's what I signed on for when I started this mission. Well, that's the end of my tangent. Thanks again, guys, for all the support. It truly does mean more than you could ever imagine. Before I close out, as hunting season is in full swing, everyone, please, stay aware of your surroundings out there. Please. And don't forget to look up. That's a big one. And try not to hunt alone if you can help it. Legends, everyone stay safe out there. I love each and every one of you. And never forget, you're not alone. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always, good night.